And what was life like in Egypt, where Moses was raised? We know that Moses, from a young age, was raised in the Pharaoh's court. What was the culture of Egypt that was so strong? What were the customs, characteristics, and traditions that we are going to show which influenced the history of the Bible so much? On one hand, we know that the Egyptians were idolaters. They had various gods, such as the Nile River itself, which played a significant role. Because you are in a land that is very close to the desert, even part of the territory is a desert. So the land is very hot, and you have the world's largest river in terms of length. So you have water. You have this water to drink, to irrigate the fields. Well, they saw the river as a divinity. We see this even today, for example, in India. Many people believe there that one of the rivers, even more than one of the rivers that pass through there, has this same illusion that there is water and now we can plant. So people worship the river as if it were a god. And as if that were not enough, the Pharaoh himself was a kind of god. We see this explicitly in the book of the prophets when God speaks about the Pharaoh and says, "You who say that my river, which I made myself, he made it." In other words, the Pharaoh made everyone believe that he created the Nile River, so he is a kind of god who created the river. In reality, each of the pharaohs, and there were several pharaohs throughout history, each one of them claimed that he had divine power, but he was the connection between the higher gods and the material world. So you have to respect me, because if you don't respect me, that is, the Pharaoh, I will make the higher gods, the gods who are in the heavens, punish you. Treat me well, because I am the person who can bring the most blessings, like abundance, into your lives. We also know, and here is a biblical case, that they worshipped and venerated animals. How do we know this? When Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, "Look, we want to leave the land of Egypt. We want to serve our God," Pharaoh responded, "What's the problem? Go ahead, do it here." Moses said to Pharaoh, "How can we offer sacrifices to our God when these sacrifices are your own gods, the Egyptians, and you will stone us? We cannot do this in the land of Egypt." Pharaoh remained silent because they genuinely believed that many animals were gods. So here we have a proliferation of gods. It's interesting that the primary origin of everything, the God who created the entire universe according to them, was called Ptah. He was a God who was alone in the world, and he felt very lonely. He had a feeling of loneliness. There was nothing else. So it was just him and his shadow. He ended up having relations with his shadow because there was nothing else. And from that, he created other gods and humanity and so on. They believed in this story fervently. We also see this when we look at the drawings in the pyramids and Egyptian archaeology. There are many other gods with human bodies, but sometimes with faces of eagles, birds, and other animals. Each one representing something that we see very strongly is the theme of idolatry in Egypt. Various forms of idolatry with various beliefs. Furthermore, we have another text from the Bible that can prove this because it is written on the firstborn's plates that there was no house where there were no deaths. In other words, many households had more than one death. You might ask, how can that be? If the firstborn died, then you can say there were two, the father and the firstborn. But some say that there were 5 or 6 children who died. How can this be? The answer is that many times, these were children born from forbidden relationships. In terms of hydrology, we see that paganism was very strong, with various beliefs, including some relatively positive ones, such as the belief in an afterlife. But their idea that the body had to be preserved in a specific way, and only those who could afford it would live in the afterlife, differed greatly from the will of God. It was a completely different society, whether it was through incestuous relationships or through the desire of the people in the upper classes to not mix with the lower classes. So incest, intra-family relationships, brother with sister, father with daughter, and all these types of relationships were not seen as something forbidden. It was quite the opposite. Yes, we will be blessed by our gods if we don't mix with the lower classes. This led to a society where Moisés grew up, but he knew it could be different from everyone else. The same goes for the people of Israel. This teaches us that in a society with so much wrong, we can be different and do the Creator's will.